You cannot just start digging up that slope. It's common area and it's protected.
It's drainage work. If I don't trench it, half these houses are going to flood next storm.
Okay, everybody take a breath.
Mr. Ortiz, the HOA will...
They didn't accidentally put 96 houses on my land. They did it on purpose. I inherited 47 acres in Colorado from my grandfather. It was paid off and untouched. I hadn't been back in 3 years. When I finally went, my forest was gone and a whole subdivision stood where the trees used to be. Paved streets, street lamps, people hauling furniture into homes they'd paid $485,000 apiece for. The HOA president, a woman who'd never earned an honest paycheck but wore a Rolex like it was her uniform, looked me in the eye and called me a deadbeat squatter trying to rip off hard-working families. She told me her lawyer had declared the land abandoned, so under adverse possession, it now belonged to them. She'd already collected $16 million in pre-sales. What did I do? Absolutely nothing at first. I let them finish building. Watched them landscape, paint, put in pools. Then I walked into federal court with my grandfather's original 1971 deed. What would you do if somebody built a whole neighborhood on your property? Drop your state below. Let's see where my land rights family is watching from. I'm Dakota Flint, yes, like The Rock. 47 years old, structural engineer, divorced. I drive a 2008 Silverado that eats a quart of oil every month. Nothing remarkable about me except one thing. My grandfather left me 47 acres of Colorado forest worth about $4.2 million. William Flint bought that ground in 1971 for $8,200 cash. Depression-era sensibility. He kept every receipt in leather ledger books that reeked of pipe tobacco and WD-40. When he died in 2019, he left the land to me, tucking one note inside the deed. Don't let the bastards take what's yours. I hadn't gone back in 3 years. Divorce, 2 kids in college, 70-hour work weeks. But I paid the property taxes every April, $6,400 a year. Never late, always paid online. I had the emailed receipts. In August 2022, I finally drove up to scatter Grandpa's ashes, turned off Highway 36 onto the old fire road, and my stomach dropped. The pine forest was gone. In its place were 96 Mediterranean stucco houses with fake balconies and HOA-mandated beige paint. A carved stone sign announced Ridgeline Heights, a Whitmore luxury community. I checked my GPS 4 times. Same coordinates. This was my land. At the gatehouse, a security guard stopped me. Residents only. I own this property, I said, holding up my phone showing a photo of the deed. He smirked. Sure, buddy, and I'm Elon Musk. Turn around. Before I could argue, a white Range Rover pulled up. Cassandra Whitmore stepped out. Mid-50s, Botox frozen into a permanent, mild surprise expression, wearing white linen that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. She had that air of someone who never had anyone with real power tell her no. Problem, Ray? She asked the guard without looking at me. This gentleman says he owns the development. She finally turned toward me. Her eyes scanned. Work boots, a Carhartt jacket, calloused hands. I watched her mentally check the box for poor. How charming, she said. Sweetie, if you're looking for construction work, most crews are full, but I can take your number. I'm not looking for work. I'm the legal owner. My grandfather, William Flint. She produced her phone and scrolled with manicured nails. Our title company ran a forensic search. This land was abandoned for over 3 years, which, under Colorado Adverse Possession Statute 38-241-101, means nothing if property taxes were paid, I cut in. Her smile snapped tight. That's adorable. You know just enough to be dangerous. She handed me a business card like it was infectious. Brian Keir, our attorney. He'll explain why your claim is, what's the legal term? Frivolous, I took the card. How many houses sold? I asked. All 96. Pre-construction sales totaled $16 million. Families moving in by Thanksgiving. She said it like a threat. This is a legitimate development, properly permitted through Boulder County. If you continue trespassing, I'll call Sheriff Mitchell personally. We're major contributors to his department's equipment fund. Then she did something that chilled me. She snapped a photo of my license plate. Just in case you decide to come back and vandalize anything, we have excellent security footage, she said, leaning in. And trust me, honey, people like you don't win against people like us. The diesel stench from an excavator mixed with fresh concrete. A nail gun popped like a countdown. I drove home with my hands shaking. That night I spread Grandpa's documents across my kitchen table, the 1971 deed, 47 years annual tax receipts, survey maps. Cassandra had threatened me, photographed my truck, and implied I was a criminal. She'd also handed me everything I needed to bury her. Monday morning, I called Brian Keir, Cassandra's attorney. His receptionist had that precisely professional tone, the one dentists use right before bad news. Mr. Keir is in depositions all week. Can I take a message? Dakota Flint about the Ridgeline Heights property. Pause. Oh, yes, Mr. Keir anticipated your call. He's authorized me to offer a nuisance settlement of $15,000 if you'll sign a quitclaim deed by Friday. $15,000 for $4 million in land. I'd heard of quitclaim deeds during my divorce. That's how my ex ended up with the Branson timeshare neither of us wanted. Basically, you sign away every right to something without anyone promising those rights exist. It's the legal version of saying, I give up. I don't even care if I'm right, my divorce lawyer had told me. Never sign one unless you're absolutely sure you're walking away from nothing. Tell Mr. Keir I'll see him in court, I said, and hung up before she could respond. I needed a real lawyer, not the guy who handled my divorce for $2,200. I needed someone who made other lawyers check their malpractice insurance. My buddy Marcus, a civil engineer in Cheyenne, gave me one name, Lydia Chen. She'd beaten a railroad company in a Wyoming adverse possession case so badly they'd offered her a job just to make her stop. Her consultation fee was $500. I put it on a credit card and hoped. Lydia's office smelled of old leather and lemon furniture polish, the kind of scent that costs money to maintain. She looked to be about 60, gray hair in a tight bun, reading glasses on a beaded chain. She listened to my whole story without interrupting, taking notes in handwriting so neat it could be a font. When I finished, she set her pen down. Show me your tax receipts. I produced a folder thick enough to do damage, email confirmations, bank statements, county records, every April payment since 2019, plus copies going back to Grandpa's first payment in 1971. She flipped through them, and I saw the corner of her mouth twitch into something that might have been a smile if her face were less controlled. In Colorado, claiming adverse possession takes 18 years of open, continuous, and hostile use of the land, plus consistent payment of property taxes during that time. If you've been paying those taxes yourself, their claim is already dead on arrival. That means I can get an injunction and halt construction, I said. She shut the folder and shook her head. Here's what I'd do instead, and you're going to think I'm out of my mind. Let them finish building, I stared at her. Stop construction now, and Cassandra's company goes bankrupt. Then your land gets sucked into a 3-year legal nightmare with 96 families who purchased homes believing everything was legitimate, suing everybody in sight, banks, insurers, title companies, even you. It's legal whack-a-mole, she leaned in. But if you wait until they're done, then file for a declaratory judgment, you own 96 finished homes. Cassandra's firm will have committed textbook fraud, selling land they didn't own. They'll be desperate to cut a deal because the alternative is prison. My hands trembled. What if they somehow win? They won't, but even in some upside-down world where they did, you've lost nothing. Your property's already occupied. The only real difference is whether you're battling one crooked developer or 96 traumatized families. It was cold. It was calculated. It was brutal, and it made perfect sense. How much? I asked. $40,000 in legal fees, maybe $50,000. But when we win, and we will, the court awards damages for trespass, unjust enrichment, fraud, and attorney's fees. You'll end up with the houses free and clear. Sell them, rent them, or negotiate a settlement worth millions. I had $12,000 in savings. My truck needed a new transmission. My daughter's tuition was due in January. I'll figure it out, I heard myself say. One last thing. Lydia's voice dropped. Do not contact Cassandra. Don't post anything online. Don't tell anyone except your kids and maybe one trusted friend. In property litigation, surprise is worth more than gold. I hired her that day, signing a retainer agreement that made my stomach twist. September slid into October. I drove past Ridgeline Heights twice a week, parking on the public road with my phone camera running. Framers swarmed the lots like ants. The air smelled of sawdust and diesel. Plumbers hauled coils of PEX tubing. Electricians pulled wire through studs. Every visit, I snapped time-stamped photos. Cassandra spotted me by the 3rd week. I saw her make a call from 200 yards away, gesturing at my truck like it was a bomb. 20 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser rolled up behind me. Deputy Torres, late 20s, wearing the uneasy body language of a man stuck between a rock and a campaign donor, approached. "Sir, I need to see your license." I handed it over. "I'm on a public road, officer." He walked back to his car, ran my plates, and returned looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Mrs. Whitmore says you've been harassing her, following her, taking pictures. I'm documenting construction on property I own." Check Boulder County records. Parcel APN 559322408. Owner Dakota Flint. Torres shifted. "Look, if there's a property dispute, that's civil court territory. But she's filed a formal complaint. If she calls again saying you're threatening her, I'll have to act. Understand? Translation, she donates to the sheriff's re-election fund." "You don't?" "Understood," I said. He left. I kept taking pictures. By November, the first families moved in. U-Hauls clogged cul-de-sacs, kids zipped by on scooters, and the smell of pizza delivery mingled with fresh paint. I watched one couple carry a crib into house number 43. Another planted a maple tree in their front yard, and I felt sick. These weren't villains. They were people who'd saved for down payments, thinking they were living the American dream. But Cassandra, she was about to learn that stealing costs more than money. Thanksgiving week, Cassandra sent me a certified letter. I signed for it at the post office. Deb, the clerk who'd known my grandfather, wrinkled her nose at the return address. "Whitmore Development, LLC. That's the lady putting up those McMansions on Old Mill Road, right?" She handed me the envelope. "My sister tried to buy one. They wanted $485,000 for 1,800 square feet. Highway robbery. I opened it in my truck. Legal letterhead. Brian Kemper's signature. 3 pages of dense legalese that boiled down to, 'Stop trespassing or we'll sue you for harassment.' There was a photo attached. My Silverado parked on the public road, taken from inside the subdivision. Someone had circled my license plate in red Sharpie. In the margin, 'Document everything.' I drove straight to Lydia's office. She read the letter, then started laughing. Not polite laughter, but the full belly kind of someone who's just been handed a gift. "They're documenting their own fraud," she said, wiping her eyes. "Every letter, every photo, every interaction. It's proof they knew there was a dispute and kept building." "This is beautiful. Doesn't feel beautiful. Feels like I'm being stalked." "You are? But here's what you're going to do. Nothing? Let them waste money on legal threats. Let them create evidence. We'll file in January, right after the holidays, when everyone's distracted." She pulled out a yellow legal pad. "Meanwhile, I need you to dig up everything you can on Cassandra Whitmore. Property records, business filings, tax liens, anything public. I want to know who's financing this development." I spent the next 2 weeks playing amateur detective. As an engineer, I knew how to read plats, survey maps, and permit applications. Boulder County's online records showed Whitmore Development LLC registered in Delaware. Always a red flag. Delaware corporations are like offshore bank accounts for people who want to hide things. Cassandra was listed as the sole managing member, but the money came from Ridgeline Capital Group, a Denver investment firm. I dug deeper. Ridgeline Capital was owned by 3 partners, one of them Cassandra's husband, Preston Whitmore, a real estate developer who'd already been sued twice for construction defects and once for defrauding investors in a failed resort project. All quietly settled, records sealed. This wasn't just Cassandra's scam. It was a family business. Then I found more. Boulder County permits listed the land as formerly tax delinquent. Acquired via an adverse possession claim filed March 2022. But here's the thing about adverse possession. You can't just file a claim. You must prove it in court first, get a judgment, then record that judgment before you can sell. They skipped that step, filed the claim, then immediately began selling lots as though they'd already won. That's fraud. Premeditated, documented fraud. I sent everything to Lydia via encrypted email. By then I'd learned developers like the Whitmores have ways of making people's lives miserable. She called an hour later. "Dakota, this is better than I thought. Preston Whitmore has a pattern. If we can prove he knew you owned the land and went ahead anyway, this isn't just civil trespass. It's criminal fraud." "How do we prove that?" "Let me handle it. You just keep your head down." But keeping my head down got harder when Cassandra escalated. December 3rd, I got a call from Boulder County Code Enforcement. A weary-sounding man named Rick Polson said, "Mr. Flint, we've received a report you're operating an illegal dumping site on parcel 5593248. "What?" I don't even live there. The complaint says piles of construction debris, old vehicles, and possible hazardous waste. I'm required to inspect. Fines start at $500 per day if violations are confirmed. That afternoon, I drove up with my phone recording. The land was pristine, except for the 96 houses Cassandra had illegally built. No debris, no vehicles, nothing. Rick met me at the entrance, clipboard in hand. Mid-50s, sunburned, wearing a county vest. He walked the perimeter, checked behind the houses, took photos, then came back shaking his head. There's nothing here. Someone filed a false report. Who filed it? He checked his notes. Anonymous tip, but it came through Mrs. Whitmore's office as a concerned citizen complaint. So she's trying to get me fined for violations that don't exist on land she's occupying. Rick gave me a long look. Off the record, I've inspected 6 Whitmore projects. Every single one had complaints filed against neighboring landowners right before construction permits were approved. It's a pattern. He handed me his card. If you need a witness statement, call me. I drove home with that card in my pocket and rage in my chest. Cassandra wasn't just stealing my land. She was trying to bury me in bureaucratic quicksand while she finished construction. But what she didn't know, what no one knew except Lydia, was that every move she made was digging her own grave deeper. By Christmas, 84 houses were occupied. Families strung lights. Kids built snowmen. And I had a court date set for January 12th. On January 4th, 8 days before court, my daughter Emma texted me at 11 p.m. Dad, did you get arrested? Someone posted on Facebook that you're harassing families in a neighborhood. It's got 300 shares. My stomach dropped. I opened Facebook, which I hadn't touched since my divorce, and found the post immediately. It was pinned at the top of the Boulder County Community Watch group, written by Cassandra herself. Alert! Local man Dakota Flint has been stalking our family-friendly Ridgeline Heights community, taking photos of children, making residents feel unsafe. He claims to own our neighborhood despite clear legal title. Boulder County Sheriff's aware. Please report any sightings. Protect your families. The comments were a dumpster fire. People calling me a predator, suggesting I belonged on a registry. Someone even posted a photo of my Silverado, license plate visible. Caption, "This is his truck. Stay safe, everyone." My hands trembled so violently I could hardly press the keys. I dialed Lydia's number. She picked up on the very first ring. I've seen it. Don't reply. Don't comment. Don't try to defend yourself, she said. She's calling me a pedophile, Lydia. My daughter's sobbing. My son just asked if I'm going to jail. I know, she replied calmly. It's defamation, and we're adding it to the lawsuit. But if you respond, it makes you look guilty. Let me handle this, her tone softened. Dakota, this is what desperate people do. She knows we've filed. She knows her lawyer's seen the evidence. This is a last-ditch attempt to smear you before trial. It's working. I've gotten a dozen messages from people I went to high school with asking what's going on. Good. Save everything. Screenshots of every share, comment, and message. It all proves malice. For the next 3 hours, I tracked how the post spread. By midnight, it had 847 shares. Someone even created a hashtag, Stop Dakota Flint. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my boss called me into his office. Martin's a solid guy. Ex-Navy, runs the structural engineering firm where I've worked for 14 years. He closed the door, which was never a good sign. Dakota, a potential client, called this morning. They Googled our firm and found that situation with your name on it. The Facebook post, I muttered, my chest tightening. Yeah. He rubbed his face. Look, I know you. You're dependable. But the client's a school district and they're nervous about optics. They asked specifically if you'd be on the project. I told them no. I said you're on personal leave while a legal matter is resolved. Which, as of today, you are. He handed me an envelope. Paid leave. 2 weeks. If this clears up, you're back immediately. If it doesn't... He left the sentence hanging. I took the envelope. Understood. Walking to my truck, I passed Jenny from accounting. She'd always been warm, brought Christmas cookies, asked about my kids. When she saw me, she literally crossed the parking lot to avoid me. That's when I realized what Cassandra was really doing. She wasn't just attacking my legal claim, she was destroying my reputation, my job, my ability to exist in my own town. I sat in my truck and called Lydia again. They're destroying me, I said. I just got put on leave. People are literally crossing the street to avoid me. I'm filing an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order against Cassandra, defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, interference with business relations. We'll have a hearing Monday. She hesitated. But Dakota, you need to understand. This gets worse before it gets better. If you want to walk away, I can negotiate a settlement. Maybe $500,000. You could move, start over. I thought about Grandpa's note. Don't let the bastards take what's yours. No, I said. We finish this. Then buckle up, she warned. They're going to hit harder. She was right. January 7th. Someone spray-painted pervert across my garage door. I filed a police report. The officer, Patterson, older, definitely not Torres, snapped photos with all the enthusiasm of a man at the DMV. Any idea who did this? He asked. Check the Facebook post going around. Probably someone who believed it. He scribbled something down. We'll increase patrols in your area. That night I slept with a baseball bat next to my bed. January 9th, 3 days before court. My daughter Emma, who's also my lawyer, called me crying. Someone had sent her the Facebook post along with a message, "Your dad's a creep, and everyone knows it." I drove to her apartment in Fort Collins. She and her roommate stared at me like I was radioactive. Dad, just tell me the truth. Are you really stalking people? I sat down and explained everything. The land, Cassandra, the lawsuit, the houses. I showed her Grandpa's deed, the tax receipts, Lydia's filings. Emma read them, and I watched her face shift from fear to fury. So she's lying about everything? Everything! Then we need to fight back. Lydia says we wait for court. Emma shook her head. Dad, you've been playing defense your whole life. Divorce, work, everything. Just once, hit first. I didn't answer, but her words stuck with me. January 11th, the night before court. I got one last message from an unknown number. Drop the lawsuit or everyone finds out what you really are. I forwarded it to Lydia. She texted back instantly. Perfect. Bring your phone to court tomorrow. We're going to bury them. The Boulder County Courthouse smelled like floor wax and recycled air. I met Lydia outside courtroom 3C at 8:45 a.m. She wore a navy suit that probably cost more than my truck, carrying a leather briefcase that looked bulletproof. You ready? She asked. I wasn't. My hands were sweaty. I was wearing my only suit, the one from my daughter's high school graduation 3 years ago, now too tight in the shoulders. Do we have enough? I asked. We have a nuclear bomb, she said. Trust me. She checked her watch. Cassandra's attorney filed a motion to dismiss yesterday at 4:57 p.m. Classic delay tactic. Judge Ramirez hates that. We walked in. Cassandra sat at the defendant's table with Brian Keir and her husband, Preston Whitmore, a man I'd only seen on property records. He was around 60, gray hair slicked back, wearing a suit that screamed, "I've settled 3 fraud lawsuits." He whispered to Keir, both looking smug. Cassandra smiled at me, actually smiled, as if she'd already won. Judge Angela Ramirez entered, a woman in her 50s with reading glasses and no patience. All rise. Be seated. Case number 2023 CV000847, Flint versus Whitmore Development LLC and associated parties. She looked at Keir. Counselor, I received your motion to dismiss at 5 p.m. yesterday. You want to explain why you think that's appropriate? Keir stood. Your Honor, the plaintiff's claim is defective on its face. Whitmore Development holds clear title via adverse possession. Mr. Flint abandoned the property for over 3 years. Did he pay property taxes? Judge Ramirez cut in. Well, yes, but then adverse possession fails under Colorado Statute 3841-101. What else do you have? I watched Keir's confidence crack like cheap concrete. Your Honor, the title company conducted a thorough search. Ms. Chen? The judge turned to Lydia. Lydia stood, and the temperature seemed to drop 5 degrees. Your Honor, we're not here to debate adverse possession. That claim is frivolous. We're here because the defendants knowingly committed fraud. She opened her briefcase. I'd like to submit Exhibit A, an internal email from Preston Whitmore to Cassandra Whitmore, dated February 18th, 2022. She handed copies to the judge and Keir. I craned my neck to see. Keir went pale. Judge Ramirez read it, her eyebrows lifting. Counselor Keir, did you know about this email? Your Honor, I've never seen that document. It was submitted in discovery last week, Lydia said smoothly. Perhaps it got lost in your office. What does it say? I whispered. Lydia slid me a copy. My heart pounded as I read. From Preston Whitmore at Ridgeline Capital to C. Whitmore at Whitmore Development Subject, Old Mill Road Property Risk Assessment. Cassie spoke with our title attorney. The Flint parcel is not abandoned. Owner William Flint's grandson has been paying property taxes continuously since 2019. Adverse possession claim won't hold up in court. However, if we move fast, file the AP claim, get permits approved, start selling lots before anyone notices, we can create enough chaos that Flint either settles cheap or gets buried in litigation costs. Worst case, we build everything, file bankruptcy, and let the title insurance companies sort it out. We've done this before. Aspen Project 2019. Risk level, medium. Reward 16% net gross. I read it 3 times. They'd known from the start. They'd known they were stealing my land. Your Honor, Lydia continued, this email proves the defendants engaged in intentional fraud. They knew Mr. Flint owned the property. They knew their adverse possession claim was baseless. They proceeded anyway because they calculated, correctly, that most people can't afford to fight a multi-million-dollar legal battle. Judge Ramirez looked at Preston and Cassandra. Is this email authentic? Preston began to stand, but Keir grabbed his arm. Your Honor, we need to consult with our clients. That sounds like a yes. The judge closed the folder. Here's what's going to happen. Motion to dismiss denied. This case proceeds to trial on an expedited schedule. In the meantime, I'm issuing a temporary restraining order. Whitmore Development will halt all sales, marketing, and transfers of property related to Ridgeline Heights until resolution. And Mrs. Whitmore, if I see one more Facebook post, one more anonymous tip to code enforcement, or one more threat directed at Mr. Flint, I will hold you in contempt. Are we clear? Cassandra's face had gone from smug to ashen. Yes, Your Honor, she whispered. Walking out of the courthouse, Lydia turned to me. That email? I got it from a whistleblower, one of Preston's ex-partners who got burned in the Aspen deal. He's been waiting 5 years for payback. How'd you find him? She smiled. I'm very good at my job. For the first time in 4 months, I could breathe. That night, I bought a bottle of whiskey I couldn't afford and sat on my back porch watching the snow fall. My phone buzzed every 5 minutes. Emma, my son Tyler, Marcus from Wyoming, even my ex-wife Jennifer sending a cautious, "Heard you had a good day in court." But the message that mattered came from Lydia at 9:47 p.m. My office tomorrow at 10 a.m. Bring coffee. We're building the kill shot. I showed up at 9:30. With 2 large coffees and a box of donuts, seemed appropriate for planning. Someone's legal destruction, Lydia's. Conference room had a whiteboard covering an entire wall. Already half filled with dates, names, and arrows like a conspiracy map. You brought donuts? She grabbed a glazed one. I like you more now. What's all this? I asked. This, she said, tapping the board with a marker, is how we turn your property dispute into a criminal referral. She circled Preston's name. The email was the grenade. Now we bring the artillery. She'd spent the previous evening with her paralegal tracking down every project the Whitmores had touched in the past decade. 7 total, all in Colorado mountain towns, all following the same pattern. Find land with cloudy titles or elderly owners. File aggressive claims, build fast, sell faster, and let insurance companies clean up the mess. They're not developers, Lydia said. They're land pirates with LLCs. What made my case different was documentation. Grandpa's meticulous records back to 1971. Every timber sale, every fence repair, every property tax payment logged in those tobacco-scented ledgers. My own tax receipts, survey maps, photographs with GPS timestamps. Most of their victims were old, poor, or didn't keep records. Lydia broke it down for me. Most people either settled for pennies or lost outright because they couldn't prove uninterrupted ownership. You, she said, can prove every single piece of it. She pulled out a yellow legal pad. Here's our game plan. Phase 1, discovery. We're going to depose Preston, Cassandra, their title company, their lender, and every contractor who filed a permit. Someone always slips up, usually the title company. They're terrified of losing their license. I remembered my divorce lawyer once explaining how depositions work. Basically, you're stuck in a room, answering questions under oath while a stenographer clicks away on a machine. People think they can lie. Lawyers like Lydia just ask the same question 17 different ways until you contradict yourself. It's like dynamite fishing. Phase 2, she went on. We amend the complaint to include RICO charges. RICO, as in the mafia. The Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. If we can prove a pattern of fraud across multiple projects, and we can, it goes federal. Federal means triple damages. She wrote 163 for E88 Millers on the board. That's what they're facing if they lose. My mouth felt like cotton. Can they even pay that? No, she said calmly, which is why they'll settle. And here's the beauty of it. Preston and Cassandra personally guaranteed the construction loans. If Whitmore Development goes under, the lenders go after their houses, their cars, their bank accounts, everything. She was clearly enjoying herself. Her eyes lit up when she talked about asset seizures. What do you need me to do? I asked. 3 things, she said. First, make a detailed timeline of every visit you made to the property. Dates, times, what you saw, who you spoke to. Deputy Torres. That code enforcement guy, Rick Polson. Anyone who witnessed their harassment. I took out my phone. I've been logging everything since September. Smart, she said. Second, we need allies. Anyone in the community who's been burned by the whites, former employees, neighbors, unpaid contractors. Give me a list. I thought of what Rick Polson had said. He'd inspected 6 Whitmore projects, all of them generating complaints from adjacent landowners. I know where to start, I told her. Third, Lydia leaned forward. This goes public, but not on Facebook. That's Cassandra's turf. We're talking local news? I've got a contact at Channel 9 Denver. Patricia Hughes, an investigative reporter. She loves corporate fraud stories. 2-time Emmy winner for taking down a slumlord and a crooked county commissioner. You want me on TV? I want us on TV, you, me, and every family in Ridgeline Heights who thought they were buying the American dream. Because here's the thing, Dakota. Those 96 families aren't the enemy. They're victims, same as you. When this is over, they'll own their homes free and clear, and Cassandra will be left with nothing but legal bills. She handed me a folder. This is the deposition schedule. Preston goes first next Thursday. Cassandra the week after. I want you there for both. I want them to see your face when they're forced to tell the truth. I opened the folder, dates, locations, and the list of questions Lydia planned to ask. It read like a weapon. When this is over, I asked, how much will I owe you? Less than you think, she said. Because when we win, the court awards attorney's fees. Whitmore will pay me all $60,000. That's the beautiful thing about fraud cases. The guilty party pays everyone's bills. I left her office at noon with a plan, a purpose, and finally, a sense that justice wasn't just a word people used when they meant revenge. It was something built carefully, methodically, with receipts. Preston Whitmore's deposition was set for January 18th at 9 a.m. in a glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor of a Denver office building. Through the windows, the Rockies glowed under snow, indifferent to the carnage about to unfold. Preston arrived in a charcoal suit with his attorney, Diane Kelso, who had the predatory calm of someone who bills $800 an hour. He never once looked at me. The court reporter, a tiny woman with a stenograph machine that clicked like nervous insects, swore him in, Lydia began gently. Name, address, occupation. Preston answered in a bored monotone. He'd clearly done this before. Mr. Whitmore, do you recognize this email? Lydia slid a printout across the table. The February 18th smoking gun. Preston glanced at it. I do. Did you write it? Yes. So you knew in February 2022 that Dakota Flint was the legal owner of the Old Mill Road property. Diane Kelso leaned forward. Don't answer that, Lydia smiled. The court granted a discovery order. He has to answer. Preston shifted. I knew someone named Flint was listed in county records, but our title company advised us the property was effectively abandoned. Which title company? Rocky Mountain Title Group? Lydia asked, making a note. I watched his jaw tighten. He knew what was coming. Next, she'd depose the title company, and they'd either confirm his lie or throw him under the bus to save their license. She asked 50 more questions, each one tightening the noose. By 11 a.m., Preston was sweating through his shirt. By noon, he'd contradicted himself 4 times. When Lydia finally said, "No further questions," he practically sprinted from the room. Diane Kelso lingered, giving Lydia a look of grudging respect. Your client should settle, she said quietly. Your client should have thought of that before committing fraud. Name a number? 10 million, Lydia said. Plus he resigns from every corporate board, dissolves Ridgeline Capital, and personally finances the transfer of all 96 homes to their current residents at cost. Oh, and a written apology. Diane gave a short, bitter laugh. He'll never agree to that. Then we'll see him at trial, Lydia replied, and I'll bring Channel 9 with me. 2 days later, the escalation I'd been dreading arrived. My son Tyler called at 6 p.m. He was 23, working as a line cook in Fort Collins while finishing his culinary degree. His voice trembled. "Dad, someone came to the restaurant." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "A guy in a suit said he was a private investigator looking into you. Asked my manager if I was reliable, if you'd ever been violent, if there were any incidents he should know about." Tyler's breathing was ragged. "Dad, my manager pulled me aside after and asked if there's something I need to tell him. I could lose my job." "What was the investigator's name?" He gave me a card. "Thomas Brennan, Apex Investigations." I wrote it down. "Tyler, listen to me. Don't talk to him again. If he comes back, tell him to contact my attorney. I'll handle this." After we hung up, I called Lydia, left a voicemail that probably sounded unhinged. She called back at 8 p.m. "I know," she said. "They hired a PI to dig up dirt. Classic intimidation. He went to my son's workplace. He's trying to get Tyler fired. This is witness tampering, a felony." Her voice turned to ice. "Forward me that business card photo. I'm filing an emergency motion tomorrow morning," but the hits kept coming. January 23rd, an email from the IRS, notice of audit. They were reviewing my past 3 years of tax returns, citing irregularities reported by a third party. There were no irregularities. I was a W-2 employee with simple taxes. This was harassment. I forwarded it to Lydia. She called immediately. "They're burning bridges now. This is what happens when rich people panic. They throw money at problems until the problems disappear. It's working. I can't afford an IRS audit on top of everything else. You won't have to. The IRS complaint is anonymous, but we can subpoena Apex Investigations' client records. If we prove Whitmore filed a false IRS report, that's another felony." She paused. "Dakota, they're making mistakes. Desperate people always do." January 25th, the mistakes grew. Someone leaked Ridgeline Heights sales contracts to a Boulder. Real estate blog, 96 contracts showing buyers had paid $450,000 to $530,000 for homes on disputed land. Headline, "Luxury developer sold homes on stolen property." Buyers may lose everything. My phone exploded. Emails from panicked homeowners. A woman named Sarah Chen called me crying. She'd put her entire life savings into the down payment on House 67, and now her title insurance company refused to cover the claim because of the fraud allegations. "Mr. Flint, please," she begged. "I have 2 kids. We moved here from California. This was supposed to be our forever home." "I'm not trying to take your house," I told her. "I'm trying to stop the people who stole from both of us. But what happens if you win? Do we get evicted?" "No, you'll own your home. The developer will pay for it. And if they can't?" I had no answer. That night, Lydia called with news. "Channel 9 wants to interview you. Patricia Hughes, the investigative reporter. She's doing a segment on predatory land developers. It airs February 7th, 1 week before trial." What do I say? "The truth. That you're fighting for your grandfather's legacy. That you're not the enemy. The Whitmores are. And that every family in Ridgeline Heights deserves to keep their home." I thought of Sarah Chen's voice breaking on the phone. "Set it up," I said. The Channel 9 interview was scheduled for January 30th at my house. Patricia Hughes arrived at 2 p.m. with a cameraman named Steve and enough lighting gear to shoot a Marvel movie. Patricia was mid-40s, gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, jeans and a blazer that said, "I'm professional, but I've climbed through dumpsters for a story." She shook my hand. "Mr. Flint, I've been covering real estate fraud for 12 years. Your case is the most brazen I've ever seen." We sat in my living room, which I'd frantically cleaned that morning, shoving dirty laundry into closets like a teenager before prom. Steve set up lights while Patricia reviewed her notes. "I'm going to ask about your grandfather, the property, and what you found when you discovered the development." "Just talk to me, not the camera." "We'll edit later. The interview lasted 90 minutes. I told her everything. Grandpa's ledgers, Cassandra's contempt, the Facebook smear campaign, Preston's email, the families caught in the middle. Patricia's questions were sharp but fair. She made me feel like I was talking to a friend, not performing. At the end, she switched off the camera. Off the record, I contacted Cassandra Whitmore for comment. She threatened to sue me for defamation if we air this. "Will you still run it?" Patricia smiled. "Absolutely. Threats mean I'm onto something. The segment aired February 2nd at 6 p.m. I watched it alone in my living room with a beer I was too nervous to drink. Patricia's voiceover began, "He inherited the American dream, 47 acres of Colorado forest. But when Dakota Flint returned after 3 years, he found a nightmare instead. They showed aerial footage of Ridgeline Heights, then my interview intercut with Grandpa's deed, the tax receipts, and Preston's smoking gun email. Patricia had even obtained county permit records showing the Whitmores fast-tracked approvals by donating $50,000 to the county commissioner's re-election fund. The piece ended with me saying, "I'm not trying to hurt the families who bought these homes. They're victims too. But if we let people like the Whitmores get away with this, what's the point of property rights? What's the point of laws?" My phone blew up before the segment ended. Emma called, crying proud tears. Marcus texted, "You just became a folk hero." Even my boss Martin emailed, "Come back to work Monday. We're proud to have you, but the message that mattered came at 7:15 p.m. from a blocked number. You just made the biggest mistake of your life." I forwarded it to Lydia. She called back immediately. "Don't go anywhere alone. Vary your routes. Keep your doors locked." You think they'd actually? I think they're staring at 10 years in federal prison and financial ruin. People do stupid things when they're cornered. She was right to worry. February 4, 2 days after the broadcast, I came home from grocery shopping to find my front door ajar. I'd locked it, I was sure. I stood on the porch, heart pounding, and dialed 911. Deputy Torres arrived first, with backup. They cleared the house room by room. Nothing was stolen, but someone had been inside. On my kitchen table lay a single sheet of paper with 5 words printed in block letters: "Drop it or lose everything." Torres bagged it as evidence. "We'll check for prints, but if they were smart, they wore gloves." "This is the Whitmores," I said. "They broke into my house. Can you prove that?" he asked. I couldn't, but 2 hours later, my neighbor Carol knocked. She was 70, a retired librarian who'd lived on my street for 40 years and noticed everything. "Dakota," she said, "I saw a black Audi SUV parked across the street yesterday around noon. Man in a suit got out, walked up your driveway, then came back 10 minutes later. I thought he was a salesman. Did you see his face?" "No, but I wrote down the license plate. Seemed odd." She handed me a sticky note. Colorado plate, KLM 4892. I gave it to Torres. He ran it. The vehicle belonged to Apex Investigations, Thomas Brennan's company. "That's the PI who harassed my son," I said. Torres looked uneasy. "Breaking and entering is a felony, but proving he did it versus just walking up to your door is tough without video." "So they just get away with it?" "I'll file a report. A detective will follow up. But Mr. Flint, you should consider staying somewhere else until this is over." That night, I slept at Emma's apartment in Fort Collins. ChatGPT said I crashed on her couch that night. My phone charging beside me, the baseball bat propped against the wall. It was February 6th, 3 days before trial, when Lydia called with an update. The title company had flipped. Rocky Mountain Title was now cooperating with our investigation. They'd confessed that they knew the adverse possession claim was shaky, but approved it anyway after Preston paid them $45,000 under the table. Now they were turning everything over. Emails, payment records, even recorded calls. We finally had them, completely, but so did Dakota Cassandra. Her lawyer had already called that morning, pleading for a settlement meeting. "What did you tell them?" I asked. "I told them we'll see them in court," Lydia said. The silence that followed was thick, heavy. Then she added, 3 more days. Stay safe, stay quiet, and get ready to watch it all burn." I hung up and stared out of Emma's apartment window. Snow was falling softly over Fort Collins, blanketing everything in white. Somewhere out there, Cassandra and Preston were planning whatever desperate move they had left. I just prayed I'd see it coming. February 9th, trial day, I put on the same suit I'd worn at the first hearing, still too tight around the shoulders, and drove to Boulder. Emma rode shotgun. She refused to let me go alone, said I needed family with me. Tyler had wanted to come too, but after the private investigator fiasco nearly cost him his job, he couldn't risk missing another day of work. The courthouse parking lot was chaos. 2 news vans, Channel 9 and a local Boulder station, had cameras set up on the steps. Patricia Hughes spotted me and waved, but I kept my head down. Lydia had been firm, no media comments before the trial. Inside, courtroom 3C was packed. Every one of the 96 families from Ridgeline Heights had been notified about the case, and at least 40 of them had shown up. I noticed Sarah Chen sitting 3 rows back, the same woman who'd once called me in tears about losing her forever home. She looked at me with an unreadable expression, part hope, part fear. At the defense table sat Cassandra and Preston with their attorneys, Brian Kemper and Diane Kelso, plus 2 unfamiliar faces, extra reinforcements. Cassandra was dressed in an immaculate cream suit that probably cost more than my car. Her expression was calm, perfect, but her hands trembled as she reached for her glass of water. Then Judge Ramirez entered. We all stood. "Before we begin," she said, peering over her glasses at the crowded gallery, "I want to be clear. This is a courtroom, not a circus. Anyone disrupting proceedings will be removed. Understood?" A ripple of murmured agreement followed. "Ms. Chen, opening statement." Lydia rose. The room fell silent. Her voice carried easily, sharp and commanding. "Your Honor," she began, "this case is about theft, not the kind that happens in dark alleys with masks and weapons, but the kind that happens in boardrooms, hidden behind LLCs and forged documents. Dakota Flint inherited 47 acres from his grandfather, who paid cash for that land in 1971 and maintained it diligently for nearly 5 decades. When Mr. Flint was unable to visit for 3 years due to work and family obligations, the defendants saw an opportunity. She moved closer to the jury box, habit even though it was a bench trial. They didn't just build on his property, they planned it. They researched it. They knew exactly what they were doing. She held up a poster-sized printout of one of Preston's emails. This message, written by Preston Whitmore, proves they knew Dakota Flint was the rightful owner. They understood their adverse possession claim wouldn't hold up, but they went ahead anyway because they assumed most people couldn't afford to fight back. She paused to let that sink in. "But they made one mistake," she said. "They picked the wrong man, because Dakota Flint kept every receipt, every tax record, every survey, and he refused to give up." Lydia turned to face Cassandra and Preston. "The defendants committed fraud. They broke into Mr. Flint's home. They hired private investigators to harass his children. They filed false IRS complaints. They turned his life into a nightmare simply because he stood up for his legal rights." Returning to our table, she finished, "Your Honor, we're not here asking for mercy. We're asking for justice, and we have the receipts." When she sat down, I finally exhaled. Then Diane Kelso stood for the defense. She did her best, arguing that the title company's actions were an honest mistake, that Preston's email was taken out of context, and that adverse possession law was complex and often misinterpreted. But Judge Ramirez wasn't convinced. I could tell by the way her eyes narrowed, her mouth tightening into a line. The trial lasted 7 hours. Lydia called witness after witness, the title company rep who admitted taking a bribe, Rick Polson from Code Enforcement, who testified about the false complaints, and Deputy Torres, who described the harassment campaign. She entered my grandfather's old ledgers into evidence, those tobacco-scented pages proving continuous ownership for 50 years. When Preston took the stand, Lydia dismantled him in under 40 minutes. Every question was a trap, every answer dug him deeper. By the end, he was sweating, stammering, contradicting his own deposition, glancing helplessly at Kelso for help that never came. Cassandra refused to testify, invoked the 5th. Smart move. Her lawyers knew she wouldn't survive cross-examination. At 4:47 p.m., Judge Ramirez announced she'd issue her ruling within 24 hours. We stepped into the hallway where the homeowners swarmed us. Sarah Chen grabbed my arm. "What happens to us?" she asked. "If you win, do we lose our homes?" I looked at Lydia. She gave a small nod. "You keep your homes," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Every single one of you. The Whitmores committed the fraud, not you. You'll own your houses free and clear. That's the settlement we're demanding." Silence filled the corridor. Then someone clapped. Another joined in. Within seconds, the hallway echoed with applause. Cassandra passed by, flanked by her attorneys. She met my eyes once, pure hatred burning there, then disappeared into the elevator. Outside, Patricia Hughes caught up to me on the courthouse steps. "Mr. Flint, how are you feeling?" she asked. I looked at the cameras, then at Emma standing beside me, and finally at the snow-covered Rockies stretching into the horizon. "Like my grandfather's watching," I said. "And he's proud. That clip went viral overnight, 3 million views in 12 hours. The next morning, Judge Ramirez issued her ruling. We won everything. The decision ran 18 pages, but the first paragraph said it all. The defendants engaged in a calculated, systematic scheme to defraud Dakota Flint of his lawful property through false adverse possession claims, bribery of public officials, and deliberate misrepresentation. Such conduct is reprehensible and will not be tolerated by this court. The order restored full title of all 47 acres to me, including the 96 homes. It awarded $4.22 million in damages for trespass, emotional distress, and loss of use. It required the Whitmores to pay Lydia's legal fees, $73,000, and referred the case to the U.S. Attorney's Office for Criminal Prosecution. Cassandra and Preston were finished. Ridgeline Capital dissolved within a week. Their assets, the Range Rover, the Aspen vacation home, Cassandra's jewelry, went to auction to pay creditors. Preston was indicted on 6 counts of federal fraud. Cassandra took a plea deal, 3 years probation, $500,000 restitution, and a lifetime ban from Colorado real estate development. The title company lost its license. Brian Kemper resigned his partnership to avoid disbarment, but the victory brought a new problem: what to do with the 96 families living on my land. Legally, I could have evicted them, sold the homes myself, and walked away with another $16 million. Many expected me to. Instead, on March 15th, I called a town hall meeting at Ridgeline Heights. Every family showed up, crammed into the unfinished clubhouse Cassandra had promised to build, but never did. Sarah Chen stood at the front, her fingers wrapped tightly around her daughter's hand. Near the back, an older couple, the Rodriguezes, sat frozen in fear. None of these people were villains. They were teachers, nurses, electricians, ordinary folks who'd spent years saving for a sliver of the American dream. I faced them from the front, Lydia standing beside me. "I know you're afraid," I began. "You bought your homes in good faith. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm not here to punish you for someone else's wrongdoing." The room was so still you could hear the snow dripping off the roof. "Here's my plan," I continued. "I'm transferring ownership of all 96 homes into the Ridgeline Heights Community Trust, a nonprofit we're founding today. Each family will retain ownership through the trust at the original price you paid. No mortgages, no interest. Just the amount you've already invested. If you've paid the full $485,000, you owe nothing further. If you're still making payments, you'll finish them through the trust at 0% interest." A soft gasp rippled through the crowd. Sarah Chen began to cry. "The trust will use those payments to maintain the roads, handle property taxes, and fund a scholarship program for the kids here." My grandfather believed land was meant for legacy, not profit. "This," I gestured toward them, "this is his legacy." Applause began hesitantly, then swelled into something thunderous. People hugged, wept, and shouted thank yous across the room. Mr. Rodriguez came forward and gripped my hand so firmly I thought my shoulder might come loose. "You're a good man," he said. "Your grandfather raised you right." That September, the scholarship launched. The William Flint Memorial Scholarship, $10,000 a year for a Colorado student studying engineering, forestry, or environmental science. Emma helped me organize it. She said Grandpa would have loved knowing his old ledgers full of timber sale. Records were now paying for someone's education. I kept 5 acres for myself at the north edge of the property, the section with the ancient pines Grandpa had refused to cut. I built a modest 2-bedroom cabin there, sold my house in town, and moved in last October. Now I wake each morning to the scent of pine and coffee. Deer wander past my window. Tyler visits most weekends. Emma brings her boyfriend, a law student, naturally. Even Jennifer, my ex-wife, stopped by once with her new husband. She told me she was proud of me. It felt strange, but good. In December, Patricia Hughes ran a follow-up story, From Property Theft to Community Triumph, How One Man Turned Injustice into Justice. It won her a 3rd Emmy. Last week, Sarah Chen's daughter drew me a picture, a crayon house with a stick figure labeled Mr. Dakota, holding a huge deed. It's on my fridge now, pinned with a Colorado-shaped magnet. I think about Grandpa's note sometimes. "Don't let the bastards take what's yours." He was right. But what's mine isn't just land or money. It's the fact that 96 families sleep safely tonight because I didn't give up. It's the scholarship that'll help a kid who reminds me of myself. Broke, stubborn, trying to build something real. That's justice. The kind that mends what's broken. So let me ask you something. Have you ever faced an HOA nightmare? A property dispute or someone who thought they could steamroll you just because they had money and you didn't? Tell your story in the comments. Let's create a record of how everyday people stand up to corrupt systems. And if this story meant something to you, if it reminded you that good people still win, hit that subscribe button. I've got more stories coming. Stories where the underdog beats the machine. Stories with proof. Next week, City Council denied my business permit, so I found the loophole that made me untouchable. See you then. And remember, keep your receipts. Every single one.